It's the premise of taking charge of the day and not having the day take charge of you. My goal is to have a 10 out of 10 day, which is not perfect, but excellent. It follows a format, and I stay with that, and then I have fewer black swans and fewer things out of my control.
I've been fortunate to have been a student of his, and the lessons I've learned and regularly share have helped me navigate my own black swan event. So grab a notebook, get comfortable, and enjoy some life-changing wisdom and insights from the extraordinary mastermind, Dr. Fred Grosse.
Taking charge of life and making it into what we wanted. And by doing that, I just bring the positive energy into me.
He's not just an ordinary expert. He's a psychologist, a coach, business mentor, personal growth pioneer, author, and an ordained rabbi.
I'm asking you to start thinking of how you would reach into different people who you connect with to make their day better. Just because that's who you are, you may bring light and lightness to people.
All right, Dr. Fred, welcome to Share.
Thank you, Mr. Steve.
It's an absolute honor to have you. And the reason I've invited you on for an episode is because in many of my episodes and my journey since we met many years ago, you've kind of been influential, and I bring up a lot of your themes and a lot of the things that you've taught me. And someone said to me, when are you going to have Dr. Fred on the podcast? So thank you for obviously allowing time to, spend time with us.
My pleasure. Let's see if we can make this work properly. It's nice and clear.
Looks good. It looks good. It looks good. So, Dr. Fred, could you give a snapshot of your story?
Tell me what that means in English, my story.
Your story around, how have you got here today? What you've been through.
It's really a long story, my friend. I'll just start. I'm an ordained rabbi, graduated from seminary in 1965. So my perspective is that of a religious person. I spent 6 years in seminary. I was the top student for 6 years at the seminary, won all kinds of prizes, lived in Jerusalem, worked as an archaeologist in the Middle East. Before that, I worked in biochemistry of cancer. I went to medical school, and I was a biochemist at Sloan Kettering, which is a division of Cornell Medical School. And we were doing research on the biochemistry of cancer for several years. I got called to become a rabbi in 1958. You were much younger then. And in a period of 1 week, I went from fully employed as a chemist at Cornell Medical School to having applied for and accepted the seminary. And the big transition is I didn't know any Hebrew. I wasn't religious. And within a week, I was enrolled in a 6-year course. And then I was the top student for the next 6 years. It was fascinating. I felt always called by the creator of the universe. I'm a God-guided person. And so I was invited to do that, and it's been an amazing experience. So from 1958 till about 1965, I was in school. Then I was the rabbi of a congregation in Cleveland, Ohio, which put up the Jupiter rocket. I had 150 PhDs in space science in the congregation, and I was the rabbi there for 6 years. And from there, I moved to Arizona to be the rabbi of the more innovative congregations in America. And I was there for 35 years as a volunteer. I didn't get paid. And I retired in 2003, but I began my coaching and mentoring and getting a PhD all in this period of early 1970s. So I got a degree, I got a PhD, I opened my own business. I became what was, so to speak, a recognized Gestalt therapist. So as a psychologist, doing Gestalt therapy in the business world primarily. So I was dealing with basically around the themes of making a life worthwhile. The themes for my people now are people who tend to have a lot of money but don't know what to do with themselves. And so I've been doing this now actively since 1970.
Yeah, wow. That's amazing. Can I ask, Dr. Fred, obviously at this point in time, there's a lot of people that are kind of going through a lot of things. The world is a bit of a crazy place, but what are some of the barriers to people living a happy and fulfilled life out there for the people that you are working with?
Having a sense of their dharma or purpose in life. Everyone has unique talents and abilities, so that for instance, my dharma would be such that I can speak to 20,000 people for 5 hours without notes, but I can't fix anything. So if my car breaks, I'm stuck. I've got to call AA. So if I work in my area of excellence and my particular area of genius, it just comes out of me. It bubbles out of me. And what happens is people try to work in areas they have no talent in, or they force themselves, and it doesn't work. So the one is to find out where you naturally get ignited with excitement, where your passions are. It's not just emotional. If you chose to do something, which would be natural. So I have people who can sing. I have people who can create wealth. I have people who can organize businesses. I have people who can organize companies. And so they have an area of talent, but they'll have an area of non-talent. And a lot of people, especially in the public system, usually are told by teachers who never made a living. Remember, teachers make as much as a barber. That they should do X, Y, and Z rather than deal with their natural passions and ability and build their life around what they're good at.
Yeah.
I work with passions, my passions, finding your passions, connecting you and your passions, so that when you start to do something, you really genuinely enjoy doing it. It just bubbles out of you. Most people are watching television, are eating Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they build their life around entertainment and distraction. And so that most people that I know, even the very wealthy ones, don't live from their own passions and talents, which is a sadness for me. Many people plan to die by the time they're 80. They basically set up a life that's so boring that they die. And I'm 88 now. I plan to live to 120. My life is predicated on building a life worth living. And I find that most people don't have that in their life. They just sort of see what happens. And so that they blow their chances. So I have at age 88, I have another 25, 35 years to go. And the key is I know that if I am not engaged in pushing against my boundaries, I'll die also, from boredom mostly. And so we're caught up in a paradox of having talents, having ability, having areas of genius, not being told what they are, told that it's almost selfish to be wealthy. It's selfish to just build your life around you and your talents and your gifts, which I think is all lies, that these are cultural lies that keep people trapped in their smallness. I don't know if that's clear enough, but it's very clear to me.
Yeah, it's very good. Now, you talk about Black Swan events, Dr. Fred. Can you kind of explain what a Black Swan event is and how you help people navigate those?
A black swan is something that surprises you, that you're not prepared for, but it happens to everybody. So that in a normal lifetime, you're going to have black swans. Black swans can be a motoring accident, could be a divorce, could be getting cancer, could be being embezzled, could be basically having something take over your life, whether it be a medical issue or a financial issue or a divorce. And when it takes over your life, you're usually not prepared for it, and you do it anyway. Many people see that as sort of like a mistake when it happens. Oh, why me? Why am I chosen to be picked on? When in fact it happens to everyone. But if you're prepared for it, you make something out of it. And if you're not prepared for it, you get knocked down by it. And so part of Black Swans is to prepare for the things you can prepare for in life, having enough money, having a good lifestyle, having healthy eating patterns, having a fitness program, all of which you can control, and be aware that there'll be things that you won't prepare for. You'll go through a traffic light and someone will crash into you, and you'll have to deal with the output of that. So we have in life things that we don't control and do control. and to realize that both of them happen and they're not a curse, but they're part of life itself. And your job is to handle both artfully.
And for people that are going through that, and obviously something that I've experienced as well, it's very much about self-awareness. So when you talk about, people being more aware of themselves, what are some tips for people to gain more self-awareness?
This is a tough question because everyone is different here, Steve.
Yep.
One of the things about self-awareness is on a scale of 1 to 10, are you having a 10 out of 10 day? So every day as part of my morning meditation and as part of my prayers, my goal is to have a 10 out of 10 day, which is not perfect, but excellent. If I'm having a 10 out of 10 day, the day it follows a format. And I stay with that, and then I have fewer black swans and fewer things out of my control. When I'm shooting for 10 out of 10 days and I go to a 9 or an 8 or a 7, I'm already off course. And my goal that day is to get back to 10 out of 10. So when the day finishes, I can say, I got not to a perfect day, but I got to an excellent day. By staying in the 9-10 zone, life does you right. It comes out okay. Once you allow it to take you over, then you can knock all over the place. You have no control.
Going through my, obviously burnout, depression, fatigue, and struggling with anxiety, it was interesting, the 10 out of 10 day principle and the teachings that I had in the mastermind with you have really helped me. And one of the key things is what brings you joy, right? And I remember the day one of our mastermind, and you said, I want you all to write, work on a list of 500 things that ignite you, that make you happy, that bring you joy. And I remember all of us kind of looked at each other and went, 500? But it wasn't, what I worked out was it wasn't necessarily having 500, but it was a big number, an ambitious number that made you think, what are all, like when we think what makes us happy, we think these big things, right? But it can be as easy, and this is what I kind of pass on to people now, and the people I work with, is it can be as easy as making yourself a nice cup of coffee. It can be as easy as reading a book, just breathing. So it gets you thinking about what are all the things. And I know through my kind of journey that I've gone through is that I know if I'm not having a great day, I need to book a massage in, or I need to go for a walk on the beach, or I need to do all these things. And that is the premise of having a 10 out of 10 day.
It's the premise of taking charge of the day and not having the day take charge of you. If you're in a culture where everyone basically watches television, uses drugs, drinks alcohol, and wastes their life until they die. In other words, they hang around long enough to fulfill their cultural requirement of not dying young. So you die, you're 80 years old, you still have another 40 years, but you're going to commit suicide by not having a reason to get up in the morning. So you don't basically have a passion or a dharma or a destiny that you're following. As opposed to, let's assume that you're the head of a household and you have 6 kids and you have to feed them. That could be your dharma. It could be that you have a project. We used to run orphanages in Cambodia, and that was our dharma for about 8 years. We were basically providing for 30 or 40 children at a time. So it gave us a purpose that we took on, that gave us a reason to get up in the morning that was righteous and in the right direction. And what you find is most people don't have a reason. They just get up and wait to go to sleep, or to wait to have a drink, or wait to watch television, all of which is a waste of time. Let's assume you build your life around what we call 10s, 25s, 50s, and 100s, things that make your heart sing at different levels. A 10 could be a cup of coffee. It could also be cuddling your wife. A 10 also could be going to the sports and working out in the team. A 10 could be doing things for family and friends. Where you're reaching out of yourself. For instance, we used to do things on a regular basis. My wife and I still do. We'll go to a restaurant and order the meal for the person next to us. So they'll order breakfast and we'll pay for it and we'll leave before they get the bill. So by the time they get the bill, we've paid for it and left, and then they get a bill of a nice breakfast surprise. And that type of things is titillating and it's exciting. And that's part of what we call our dharma or our purpose, to bring light to other people's lives. Most people don't greet each other. We come from cultures in Indonesia and in Cambodia and in Vietnam where people say good morning.
Good.
And so my wife speaks 24 languages, and we can greet people in all those languages. So if we meet somebody, even on a line somewhere, and we hear them talking Vietnamese, or we hear them talking Indonesian, or we hear them talking Hebrew or French or German or Russian, we know these languages, we can respond to them. We were in an eye doctor's place the other day, and the man came over and he starts to talk to me, and he was talking in Farsi, in Persian, and I speak Persian. So I answered him in Persian in a doctor's office in Scottsdale, Arizona. He almost dropped his teeth. He hadn't heard Persian spoken in Arizona. And so all of a sudden, you're into that culture. We connected immediately.
Good.
We then did the rituals of hellos and goodbyes. And it was a wonderful experience. It was like two ships passing in the night, but on a personal level, because we were both speaking Farsi.
Before we get back into the episode, from time to time you might have a burning question, a guest recommendation, a comment or some feedback, which I always appreciate. If so, I'd love to continue the conversation after this episode, so let's connect. I'm easy to find, but the best place to engage and connect is on Instagram, @TheSteveHodgson. But that's enough from me. Let's get back into the episode.
So my wife, for instance, will go to the markets of Florence or Europe and go from one booth to the next. One will speak Arabic, one will be French, one will be Korean, and she speaks the languages. She starts greeting the people. People start giggling, offering her all kinds of bargains. And it's basically reaching out of your private world into the larger world and bringing joy, which is what we see doing on a daily basis. We do this regularly. It's part of what we do. Excuse me.
No, that's all right.
So
yep.
This business of taking charge of life and making it into what we want it so that it's really the way we want it to be. And if it slips away, we add things to it. We might go and take a walk or listen to music. I listen to a cappella operas and stuff. And by doing that, I just bring the positive energy into me. But you can't just leave it, because you can have road rage, you can have the negative things, you can have people, who are abusive or in a bad mood. But I can add in my stuff on top of it and change the mood.
Yeah. And talk to me about 25s, 50s, and 100s.
25s have to do with curiosity. A 10 is something that we work on a daily basis. A cup of coffee, a cuddle, listening to a piece of music, prayer. A 25 would be something that would do, for me, is if something is a cuddle, you could do it every day. It doesn't wear out. If it's fortnightly to monthly, it could be that you like playing golf. And if you play golf once every 2 weeks, it's fine. But if you played golf every day, it would be too much. So getting the curiosity of these joys in place makes life interesting. What happens is a lot of people have things they like, but they'll do it once or twice rather than put them in place. For fitness, how often do you do it? Going out with friends, listening to music, doing prayer, helping other people. The curiosity affects the quality of the experience. So 10 to 25, the goal is to have a 10 or 25 every single day and to know how to do that. So if you're having a down day, whatever that would be, but how many children do you have?
We got 5.
Just imagine sitting with 5 kids on your lap, cuddling them and telling you how they love you, how that would make your day. So you can have rituals like that. You can have the morning hug, you can have the afternoon hug, and you can add them in by choice, and it changes the whole quality of the day. So 10s, 25s, 50s, and 100s are those things that you've identified that whenever you think of them or do them, lifts your soul, makes your heart sing. and then you can do them as often as you want. And the purpose of life is to be at 10 out of 10 every day. How do you do that? You add 10s or you take away 10s. Let's assume you're with someone you don't like. I would want you to be courageous enough to excuse yourself and walk away. In other words, don't establish yourself in pain. Find things that make your heart sing.
Yeah, that's very good. Talk to me, Dr. Fred, about, obviously at the moment, and you mentioned it earlier, control the controllables, and we can control what happens up here.
Yes.
So it's interesting. You can meet two different types of people. You can meet someone that says, I'm not where I am. I'm not where I want to be because of the government, inflation, world events, wars, all these different things, right? And then you can have someone that is traveling towards, and I suppose in that law of attraction and attracting what they want in the world. What's the difference between the two people?
Choice. You have control over this. Most people advocate their choice, abrogate it. They don't choose. Just imagine that you have every day with a blank slate, and your job is to have a 10 out of 10 every day, to bring happiness and joy to strangers, to do what we call acts of wanton happiness so that you pay for the person behind you on the toll line, you pay for other people's meals, you greet people wherever you go and wish them a wonderful day. Just say, good morning, have a wonderful day. It blows people away when you do that. Most people don't answer. However, there are certain cultures, the Indonesian culture, the Vietnamese culture, the Indian people, they actually greet you. And you find that those exchanges of greetings are uplifting. So you may want to have rituals of connecting with people and develop that so that wherever you go, you're spreading light and lightness. It's a very nice feeling. And there are whole cultures like that. The Balinese are like that. They're always greeting. Selamat pagi, apa kabar. There are language that says, have a good day. But you don't go by someone without greeting them. On a normal day in Christchurch or even here in Arizona, nobody talks to each other. It's like, why would you not talk to each other? I don't know them. Well, you'll know them as soon as you greet them.
I've always said, Dr. Fred, that you meet and you connect with people and places and events and things for a reason, right? If you meet someone in a lift and you say hello to them, there's a reason why you got in the lift with that person, and you can have that interaction with them.
But it makes your day also, Steve. It makes you as well as theirs. You're reaching out and giving them a hug.
Yeah. And I always say, it's the old quote, you never forget the power that you have to make someone's day.
Yes. Negatively as well. Road rage is the opposite of that.
Dr. Fred, talk to me about what's your definition of success and how has that changed throughout your life?
For me, to have a 10 out of 10 every day, for me as a religious person, I'm very religious, I like to walk in the presence of God. Not like a priest or a monk or anything, but if I'm walking in the presence of God, it means that I'm following my dharma or my purpose in life, which is to be a teacher, a mentor, to train people for their highest iteration of who they are. That's what I do for a living as well as for a life. And if I check into myself and say, am I doing now my 10 out of 10 with my purpose, then I'm okay. As soon as I find that I'm dropped to 9 or 8, I'm in trouble. And so when people leave their central purpose, they wander into bouncing off other people's needs and hopes and dreams, and basically they're lost. So just imagine that every 10 or 20 minutes you check in and you're aligned with your higher purpose. Just when your relationship was good, I assume you have a good relationship or a solid family with 5 kids. I know that you're not necessarily at the best, but you're together. And you can then enjoy that. By reaching out, you can let them know you love them on an hourly or daily basis. And I'm asking you to start thinking of how you would reach into different people who you connect with to make their day better, just because that's who you are. You bring light and lightness to people. So I see me doing that. I find that when I check myself daily or hourly If I'm not 9 or 10, I pause and I get to be a 9 or a 10. I think of how I met my wife. I think of the trips that I've taken. I think of some of the people I've influenced. I think of the orphanages that we've sponsored. We've sponsored hundreds of kids through school. And all of those things make me feel good. And they sort of take me over. And so I can influence my feelings. And my job is to stay up because I'm sort of like a source of light to other people. Most people suck in the light and take it and make it disappear. Does that make sense?
Completely. Dr. Fred, talk to me, and I think I know what your answer is going to be, but who's been your greatest teacher throughout your life?
God. I'm a religious person. So I'm a praying. I pray every day. So every day I tap in and say, what are my instructions today, God? And the instructions usually have to do to improve the quality of the world in some way. That doesn't mean give money necessarily, although it could be that. It means that there's some divine purpose that is me, and there's a purpose that's not me. And my job is to stay in the range of the me experiences. So that in a day I'll get up, I'll see who am I going to do good things for today. And that becomes important. I still make a very good living, but my goal is to bring happiness to different people in life and to figure out as I meet them how to do that. So it becomes like a challenge of sorts, but in a positive way. I also believe very strongly in family. So my parents both died at age 100. So they basically hit 100, and they decided it was time to go. So they stopped eating and drinking, and they died within a week. So they were in charge of living and dying. And when they died at age 100, they had all of their friends that died before them because they had no life. So that they were eating Colonel Sanders and they were doing stuff, but most people are just waiting to die.
Okay.
When you're in that environment, you have no reason to get up in the morning, and eventually you just run out of steam. So part of what I keep doing is looking at things at age 88. What will I take on that will be the challenge that will keep me going? If I'm not challenged, I will die too. So one of my reasons for changing careers and doing things is to be challenged by things that force me to learn new skills. My wife does it with languages. I do it with bringing 10s and 25s and teaching. So I would say I teach virtually every day. And that's very important. It's called Dharma in the Eastern languages. In Hebrew, it's destiny. And the key is, are you living that? Or are you just sort of hanging out, waiting to see what happens? Will you become a victim of life's coincidences?
Dr. Fred, if someone's sitting there and they're struggling they're just sitting there, they don't know their Dharma, they don't know where they're going, they don't know what they're doing, what would be 3 questions that you would get them to, what 3 questions would you ask to help them unlock their path?
I don't feel that I have to do that. If they are locked up, if they came to me and said, help me get out, I may help. But otherwise, I'd leave them alone. They have a right to be unhappy. They have the same choices. We live in a very bountiful world, even with Donald Trump around here. You know, there are a lot of crazies, but there's a lot of opportunity. If somebody needs help, I'm not going to jumpstart them by stopping alongside the edge of the road and helping people bump up dead cars. I don't do that. Unless I get a specific request, and I do get requests.
Yeah.
And then my clients pay me for that. That's my job. But if I get those requests, I'll step forward. I find a lot of people have requests, but then they don't listen. So I would say that whenever I get an unspoken request for something, it's usually they want to talk, not listen.
Right.
And I don't feel obligated to listen unless it's important to me.
Brilliant. Dr. Fred, in today's episode, you've spoken very much around controlling the controllables, focusing on our, on what's going on up in our brain. and really focusing on having a 10 out of 10 day. Talk to me, if everyone could have that philosophy and everyone could have that focus, how would the world be different?
You see, you're smoking marijuana. The world is not going to be different unless individuals take up the brief, Stephen.
Yep.
Look, time is up for now, my young friend. You have to decide from your own purpose as Stephen, what is it that you want to take on and where do you want to put your time and energy? I find that most people do not want to be aided in direction. They just want to bullshit. They want to whinge. They want to complain. They want to talk about Donald Trump. You can do that, but I don't have to participate in that. Periodically, I'll be in a social setting and someone will start telling me about their terrible marriage, and I'll excuse myself and tell them I have a bladder problem and go to the toilet and not come back. I don't feel obligated to save the world. My job is to decide who I'm going to put my energy into.
Yeah. Dr. Fred, I'm grateful for your time today.
What did you get from today, Stephen? What was your takeaway?
My big takeaway today is I just love the 10 out of 10, but really about that we control what we control, right? That's something that you've taught me, and that's what I try to help instill in others. But really, there's some key things, and I asked you, what 3 questions would you ask? But in this episode, if people have listened to this episode, they know what the questions are that they've got to ask and what the things they've got to do to put in place. And I am just grateful that I came across you on the journey. I'm grateful for your time today, and just sending lots of love to yourself and Victoria and your family.
Thank you very much. Well, Stephen, pick up the brief. Start sharing the 10s. It's an amazing thing. It's like sparkle dust. It's special magic. Take care. Over and out, young fella.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Fred.